Hi everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and I have a video on how to do fluid acrylic pouring. I am going to be showing you the IndigoBlu kit, which is a great starter kit to get you going on this technique. I'll start you off with the contents, and in this kit you get 10 paper cups, and these are used to pour your paints into. You also get 20 of the little mixing pots to stir your paints. There are also 20 mixing sticks, and there are also 3 spoons and 1 pipette. There's a bottle in the kit, and I use this for water in case I need to thin out some of my paints. You'll get 1 jar of gesso that you can use for your canvases and also for your white paints. Also GoFlow, which is a mixing medium. And then there is Cellulike, and this is to create cells in the painting. So I'll show you how all of this works together. You also get 8 gloves, so there's 4 pair of latex-free gloves because it does get a little bit messy. Also in this kit are 2 canvas panels. One is 8 by 8 inches and the other is A4, which is almost an 8 by 6 inch. And finally you get 5 drip trays, and I like to reuse these. I'll let my paint dry and then use them again. So to start off, I am going to gesso my little canvas. I found that if I don't do this step, that the paint sometimes doesn't stick to the entire surface. So just use a nice coating of gesso and a wide brush. I'll be using my scale rather than my spoon because I'm using tubed paints, and the scale is really perfect to measure out my mediums. To start off on my scale, I put one of my little mixing pots on the scale and then I reset it to 0, and now I can add my paint. Next, I'll be adding the GoFlow, and what I like to do is to reset my scale, and then I will double the weight. So I want 2 parts of the GoFlow to 1 part paint. Once I have everything weighed out, I'll use a popsicle stick, and in this case I have grabbed smaller popsicle sticks. I want to stir this up really, really well, and I want this to be the consistency of honey. I'll be mixing up all of my paints to the 2-to-1 ratio, and this one seems a little bit thick. So to thin this out, I'll be using my water that I have in the bottle. You'll want to start off with a small amount, then mix it in and continue until you have that consistency of honey. It's really important that your paint is that consistency, and that's what helps make everything work together. For these paintings, you want to add a little bit of extra white paint, so I'm using the bigger cup for this, and I'm doubling up on the amount of paint I'm putting in here. I'm using the gesso that is in the kit and the spoon to spoon it out of the jar. I've taken note of the weight of my gesso, and now I'm adding the GoFlow for my ratio of 2-to-1. GoFlow is a medium that thins out the paint yet binds it together so it doesn't separate. This is a really important item to use in your mixtures. I have all my paints mixed together, and next I want to add some Cellulike. This is a clear silicone and it almost acts as a resist where it creates little bubbles in the paints and then other colors can come up through. I'll be adding a couple drops to each of my colors and about 1 to 3 drops to my white. And once I have my Cellulike mixed into my paints, I'll give this another stir. Okay, I've put my gloves on and I'm getting ready to pour some paint into another cup. This is called a dirty pour. So what I'm doing is I'm adding white to the bottom, just a little bit. I haven't used all of it, and then I'll start pouring in some of my paints. There is no real science to this. I am keeping in mind what colors I want to sit next to each other. I have chosen colors that won't really clash terribly if they mix together. So my browns and my blues, those will look good together, and then the rust on top of the brown I think will look really pretty. I'll continue layering in my paints a little bit at a time until I have used up all the paints in my small pots. And before I get ready to pour, I'll do just a little cross with my popsicle stick to mix those paints ever so slightly. This is called a dirty pour because I will be placing the cup on top of the canvas and just letting the paint drop onto the canvas. So to do that, I'll put the canvas on top of the cup and then invert it, and I'll let this set for a little bit. What I want to do is to have all that paint come out from the cup to the bottom of the cup. Now I'm using my extra white paint just around the canvas. This will help everything flow out and over to the sides. Once I have all the white paint out, I can use my popsicle stick to smooth this around the canvas. My cup has been sitting on top for a couple of minutes, and I'm just tapping the top just to make sure that I get all of the paint out. And now I'm going to turn the cup, pull it down, and then flip it back up on itself. And this is such a magic time because you never know what you're going to get. There is no painting that is the same. They are also very different. So I'm going to let this spread out just a little bit. And now you can see where that cellulite has created all those cells. And what I mean by cells are those little circular areas where different color paint pop through. So just turn your canvas and spread that off to the ends, to each of the corners, and to make sure that it's fully covered. You can use your fingers to help it into some of the areas if you need to, if there's no paint. And you can scoop up paint that's in your drip tray and put it back onto the painting. I think these colors worked really well together, and here's a close-up of how those cells and everything looks. You can see how some of them strung out, and I got some lacing with that white that is sitting underneath, and it's just a beautiful background for my mixed medium piece. You should let this dry for about 2 days, and you may see the canvas texture pop up, and that is just fine. And I like to clear coat mine with a lacquer or some sort of glossy finish. Once my piece was completely dry, I decided to add some flowers, and I'm using the Tim Holtz Small Tattered Florals, and I've cut a variety of papers. And I'm using, for the stems, the Wildflower Thinlits. I thought these were really great stems to add as bases for my flowers. I've used a combination of papers, and the first one is 49 and Market, Vintage Artistry, and also the Tim Holtz Craft Stock colors for some of the flowers and also the stems. I also used the Hero Arts layering vellum to cut out a flower for each of the blossoms. The layers for the flowers are cardstock, 49 and Market paper, then vellum, and then I used a final layer of the Tim Holtz cardstock. And I cut those in different flowers and different sizes. To glue all my pieces together, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp white tacky glue because of the fine tip point allows me to get into the small areas. I've glued down all of my flowers and stems, and I've added a linen bow to the center. I've also die cut the word believe from Simon Says Stamp in several layers of brown cardstock, and I've put that all together. I think this is a gorgeous project. It's really fun, and I think you'll find that the fluid acrylic pouring is quite addictive. You never know what you're going to get. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and as always, thanks so much for watching.